What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Star Wars Exchange for our Brotherhood review. That's what we're doing this week, reviewing Brotherhood. This is our first review together for a book that we both got sent by Del Rey early. So, of course, thank you very much to Del Rey. Mike, how are you going this week?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to finally having read this book, and I'm excited to actually dive in and talk about all the stuff. And we're doing a spoiler talk today, so there's a lot of things to talk about.
We are.
Ari, how are you doing? And did you have fun time reading this book and prepping for this show today?
First of all, I'm doing great. The hype for Celebration is just coming, and oh my god, we're so excited for that. But that's not what we're talking about today. But I'm doing great. Yeah, I love this book. Had so much fun with it. Let's start with your thoughts first, though, because you just finished it off. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did that business on Cato Nemoidia live up to what you thought it would be? How are you feeling about it all?
Yeah, as Ari said, I just finished it up today as we're recording this, and
Yeah,
absolutely had a blast with it. I don't think I've read a book faster than I did with Brotherhood. The audiobook people at
oh,
Del Rey
fantastic.
have helped with that, and
Yeah,
it was a great listen. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. At the end, I was just like, wow, this is a book that I'm gonna have to revisit very soon, just because I felt like just for time I was like trying to like churn through a lot of this stuff, but then there's a lot of thematic stuff and conversations that I just want to revisit just because they were that impactful.
yeah.
So
Oh, definitely.
it's I think this book did a great took like a bold statement, took a chance to like make bold statements on Nemodians. I thought it was a great reflection of us Star Wars fans, where I'm like, dang, I didn't even I feel like this is speaking of right up to my alley, because I never even looked at the Nemodian species as more than just like people associated with the Trade Federation. And look at all the Star Wars content that we've gotten, Clone Wars, and Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. You never see the Modians other than their Trade Federation business. So you think
Yeah,
that's all they do. And I know, there's been Phantom Menace has received a lot of flack for some of its racial stereotypes, and one of them was it was like Chinese people as Nemodians. And Mike Chen is Asian, so he was writing this, and I felt like I don't know if it was intentional or not, but he was like writing and like giving like the Nemodians like a good culture
I didn't even
background. And
think
I
of
just
that.
felt like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
he gave
Yeah.
like a great background on
As
like
in, I
the
didn't even think about how Mike Chen was actually Asian and with that whole stereotype and,
yeah, right. Yeah, I was reading. I kept, and it was like very evident in the writing. I mean, like when I like finished reading, I was like, wow, like I have a deeper understanding of the Nemodian culture. And I just like every time we were on Cato Nemodia, and they were making this big emphasis on the society, on their values, and you kept getting messages like that throughout the book, especially when we were taught when there was a scene of y- there's like issues that kept recurring, where it was like, why are the wounded not guarded? They're just leaving them there. Do they not care? And it turned out to
yeah,
be part of like a
part of their
cultural
culture.
aspect.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things like art. So it's like, man, I have a deeper understanding, and I love it. And
Mm.
also, quickly, I love that this book like took a statement on, hey, we're a Star Wars book. We're gonna do things for real, and established a lot of things in canon. Listen, I love my canon. I'm a lore junkie sometimes.
Hell yeah.
So I
Hell
love
yeah.
that it took a stance on, hey, we're going to make this the first time that Saj Ventress meets Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, I
Yeah.
love that. I feel like a lot of Star Wars stories, just because they want to be, they want to be expansive, and they don't want to tie down, do a little
Mm.
detail like that where it could get contradicted in the future. And Brotherhood just takes all those leaps and bounds and is like, nope, we're gonna make a definitive statement. This is the first time that they meet. So
Yeah.
I loved all those moments. And this at the end, this book was a good this book, I mean, you look at the cover and you're like, oh look, Anakin and Obi-Wan, but it's so much more than that, that you're
Ah,
like,
yeah. Yeah.
it's crazy. I can't wait to talk about it. But Ari, I said all my I said all my statements, but I'm telling you, I'm really thrilled and gassed
Yeah.
about this book. But Ari, what did you think about the book? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What's your
I mean,
thoughts?
yeah, you segued to my thoughts perfectly because that's sort of, where my thoughts stand. You look at a cover like that and you read the description, say, "Oh, you want to find out on that business, find out about that business on Cato Nemoidia." I was like, "Cool, that sounds cool. It'll be a little fun story, Anakin,
Mhm.
Obi-Wan, and And that's all I wanted. That's all I expected. That would have been cool. But no, Mike Chen said, all right, I'm going to show you that business on Kato Nemoidia, but I expect a lot more than that. Wow, this story is just insane. It was, a political thriller. It was a mystery detective story. That it was about morality within war. Like, just so many like really strong themes that were presented in a really in a really good way and written so well. So good on Mike Chen. And I just, yeah, there's so much to dissect, and you're absolutely right about wanting to reread a lot of that stuff. There was a lot of like symbolism going on with particularly with Anakin and all that sun dragon stuff. Like, there's so much of that I want to revisit and really, break down. But yeah, and then something that I just love that this book did is it made things in Star Wars that kind of like universally agreed to be like kind of not great. And then like Star Wars does this all the time, but just Mike Chen did it so well in this book of like making it seem good. For like an example of this outside of Brotherhood, people found it in Solo a bit silly when the Imperial officer gives him the name Solo. But then in The Rise of Kylo Ren, it's like this thing that, Ben hates, and he's like, it's not even his real name, and they make it into like something cool. Anyway, but then in this book, they do that with so much stuff. They did it with the Anakin and Padme scenes in Attack of the Clones. I loved this. Mike Chen saying, "Oh, and Anakin, remembers how cringeworthy he was in those moments and how awkward he felt. And if
Right.
only he could go back and change what he said." It's like,
Right.
how great is that? Because now when I watch those scenes, I watched Attack of the Clones about halfway through this book just because I'm wanting to rewatch the movies before Celebration. And I remember texting Mike being like, "Oh my God, I forgot some of these moments in Attack of the Clones. Like, I'm haunted by the kiss. You should never have given me all that." Anyway, Mike Chen is just going to make me completely, look at that differently for the best. So, and then also moments like, oh, what was the other one? Oh yeah, the battle armor. Obviously, if the animation was available when they created Clone Wars to have Jedi robes, they would have done that. But they were like, no, we need the cheap animation. We'll do the battle armor. But then at the end of this book, Mike Chen explains, oh, the reason they had the battle armor was because the Jedi were taking a more prominent role in the military, and that they needed the armor. So just to talk more about Mike Chen and just to praise him, you can just tell how much of a Star Wars fan he is. Every little detail he just puts in, you can tell there's so much thought goes behind them because he wouldn't want to, disrespect any previous story or anything like that. And I just absolutely love that from him. And, I was reading the acknowledgements after the book, and he was talking about how much he loves the prequels, how much he loves the Clone Wars.
Right.
And I just think, and that his dream job was to write a Star Wars book set in the prequels. So good on Lucasfilm for, hiring him to write this story because it was fantastic. So much to say. Like, I'm excited to just go back and forth with you for the next hour about this. But yeah, like, I don't know. Is there something in particular you want to talk about? How about we talk about like the characters, the new characters, Roog and Mill, because I think they were a strong, point in this book, like a strong presence. They really drove the story. What did you think of those two new characters?
I always get scared about the original characters in these books because sometimes they detract from the main stars, Anakin and Obi-Wan. But there's just been Star Wars books in the past that just deviate the story, and I'm like, what are we doing here? And I just want to go back to the main characters. The characters that are on the covers, but I think Roog and Mill both complemented Obi-Wan's story and Anakin's story very well, and they had an arc of their own.
Yeah,
So they were very interesting characters that every time we went back to them, I was like, keep us here. We had Rue going on with her morality struggle. Or at least she had a moment where I was like, oh, like Mike Chen was brilliantly leading up to this like pivotal moment where she had to decide, am I gonna kill him? Am I gonna save him? Because all throughout the book, we get
yeah,
teases that she's been this cold-blooded killer. She's killed good people.
yeah,
She's
yeah,
killed bad people. So it's like, oh, like that's so good. So I love the lead up to that. And then Mill, we're introduced to her in like chapter 8 or something, and it's like I was like, all right, we're taking a weird turn here in the story because it was just Anakin, and Obi-Wan mowing down cake with Dex at his diner. So I was like, all right, I'm vibing with Mill. All right, so I love how relatable she was with her anxiety, her disassociation, and nausea. Like I was just
mm-hmm.
reading that and be like, I feel seen, right? Like that was great. So
Yeah.
especially the dissociated part, I always felt like that in school sometimes. It's like, what is going on here? What are we doing? And
Yeah, yeah.
while everyone is just mindlessly following along the teacher and stuff, and they were about to go onto the gathering on Ilum. So I thought that was great. But
Yeah.
yeah, I thought both characters, they, like I said, they added to Anakin and Obi-Wan's arc, and they each had an arc on their own by the end. I mean, how Mike Chen wrapped everything up quite nicely. It was like, yep, this was perfect. There was no
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
no moment where I just didn't like these characters. But Ari, you read about Mill. I think you and I gushed about Mill at one point while we were
No,
reading the book.
definitely. Yeah.
But what do you think about the two characters?
Yeah, well, I can't remember the last time in a book where like, the stars in a Star Wars book where the stars of the book are like, characters such as Obi-Wan and Anakin, and then the supporting characters are just so strong. Like I was blown away by it because, usually it's just like, yeah, 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 great. Like, the other characters, I want to hear about Obi-Wan and Anakin, but I was like, oh my god, tell me more about Rook, tell me more about Mill. And as you said, yeah, definitely like Mill had a really nice arc. I loved the way they ended that story. Um, her. It was interesting as well. That something I found super interesting was the interaction with Yoda at the end, where Mill's sort of like, I don't see myself wanting to be a Jedi. I want to be a good person. I want to help people, but I don't think the best way for me to do that is to become a Jedi Knight. And I thought that, yeah, great from Mill. And then Yoda's response is like much meditation you must do on this or whatever. It's like, Yoda, mate, that's not that.
Right. He's
Listen
out of
to what
touch.
she's saying. Like that, yeah, he's definitely out of touch in that moment. But I want to talk about, of course, the two main characters, Obi-Wan and Anakin, because man, I thought they were just handled so well in this story. Anakin, after watching Attack of the Clones and then diving back into the book, I was like, this is just, it felt seamless. It was really nice, and I love because I never thought about this, but I love how Mike Chen wrote about how the relationship had to sort of take a turn because it was no longer a master and apprentice type situation. It was an old master and a new Jedi Knight. So not that Obi-Wan's old, but he's the old master. So it's like I love just how they had to there was like some growing pains with the relationship, and especially Obi-Wan had to really adapt to it. And then by the end of the book, it wasn't like they were father and son. That I think literally the last line of the book is like brothers in arms or something like that. It's like they went from that father and son to brothers relationship, and the book is called Brotherhood, so obviously fitting. Um, so I loved the relationship, and in terms of for just the personal characters, Obi-Wan I thought had a fantastic arc. This really sets Obi-Wan up for the Clone Wars because he seems to be the one who can, for the most part, that is, can always seem to see things clearly. He can usually see beyond the politics and see, well, what is truly right. And he sort of finds a healthy balance because he understands the Jedi Council and the Senate. This is in Clone Wars, aren't going to, just fully do, all right, well, this is right, so this is what we're going to do. He finds a balance between, well, let's please the politicians and the council while also doing the right thing. And then, but then he still has moments like in the Siege of Mandalore where Ahsoka's like, well, I can see that you're still playing politics. You're going to go save the Chancellor when there's a whole world suffering on Mandalore. So I don't know. I just love this introduction to Obi-Wan for Clone Wars. Like this is the start of Obi-Wan's arc. It felt like it just felt really fitting. Once again, I'm just going to keep gushing over it, but I just love, the way Mike Chen wrote this story. I just think it was so perfect. And then on Anakin's side of it, his arc in this story is sort of hard to break down because I wasn't completely understanding all the symbolism and the metaphors with the sun dragon and all that, but um, there was some very scary foreshadowing at the end, of course, with a lot of the stuff Mill said. When Mill said, "You don't always have to be the sun dragon,"
Yep.
my heart just like
Yep.
ached because I was like, "Oh,
But
she gets it." Like the
mhm.
the whole thing about he's just such a passionate person. It's like it's everything he does. It's just because he cares so much. And then, of course, I actually just watched Revenge of the Sith like yesterday, leads him down that dark path, and I will say, I don't think I've felt so emotional. I've watched Revenge of the Sith probably more than any other Star Wars movie. I've never felt so emotional about Anakin turning to the dark side. Just after reading everything with Mill, just broke my heart. And I was just thinking, you don't always have to be the Sun Dragon, Anakin. Like, man. But sorry, I'm rambling a bit here. But just something else I loved with Anakin was the beginning when he's talking to all the younglings and him having to deal with that, and across the whole book saying like, "Oh, I'm never gonna have a Padawan," all that. Thought that was funny, but I really love the chapters where he had prepared something to say to the younglings, and then he got like stage fright talking to them, and so he just went on talking about something else and talked about Kitster and all that. I just thought that was great, a nice wholesome moment. But what about you, Mike? What did you think of Obi-Wan and Anakin? They're like the real meat of this whole book. So yeah, what were your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I think as I said earlier, I think their arcs and where they go. I mean, you could seamlessly go with read this and go straight into Revenge of the Sith with this Anakin and this Obi-Wan because they're first of all they're no longer fighting, right? They're build now they're like
Yeah,
building this brotherly bond, and they even Mike Chen goes out of the way in the book to say what would have been when they were master and apprentice, what would have been like verbal jabs is now just like friendly banter. And I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just cool seeing like uh even friendships evolve like that and stuff. But I thought that was a cool line because I'm like, yeah, that is true. I mean, I never got the critique of people, with critiquing Revenge of the or the prequels in general, being like, I don't know how you're supposed to feel this emotional weight with Anakin and Obi-Wan when they're having their moment on Mustafar. I don't know how you're supposed to feel any like emotional weight to that when the entirety of the prequels are fighting. But it's like, I mean, there's a lot of good moments in Revenge of the Sith where I mean, literally in Revenge of the Sith, first like opening act, Anakin is saving Obi-Wan. So it's just like, no, they're like brothers, and I think this book like does a great job of marrying
I
the
think
Attack of
people
the
with
Clones.
that
Sorry.
take, I think people with that take didn't watch the first hour of the movie.
They definitely didn't. But it's like I think that this book perfectly marries Attack of the Clones, Anakin and Obi-Wan to Revenge of the Sith,
Mm,
and is as you said, a
absolutely,
great introduction to
great point.
what they are in the
Yeah,
Clone Wars. Because I think, like I said, I am so appreciative that this book took stances like that. They did this whole like militarization act or something like Jedi integration
yeah,
act into the military,
yeah,
where yeah, they were already generals, but now it's establishing not only the Jedi as generals, but they're also making Padawans commanders. So
yeah,
they're like
and even
elevating everyone.
younglings. Yeah,
And younglings are just being thrown into like, oh hey, we need cargo delivered to a med station. Go on the way,
just get the younglings to do it.
get the
Yeah,
younglings
it's
in there. So
ridiculous.
yeah,
Yeah,
I really love that ending and the whole armor thing and also its symbolism and the friendly banter between Anakin and Obi-Wan was great. But yeah, throughout this whole book, I mean, you're talking about the awkward moment Anakin had with the younglings at first, and then once they got rowdy, he
yeah,
was just being like a total parent with them, being like, all right, let's settle down, like
yeah,
let's save the questions for the end. And then once
yeah,
the school bell rang, everybody just ran out, and it was like, well, tomorrow will be a better day, I guess. So seeing
yeah,
Anakin going through those awkward phases was so funny. And Obi-Wan, I thought they were gonna get a little bit more of screen time together. It kind of almost feels that we
yeah,
got more screen time with Anakin and Padme, which is fine. But I thought we would get more screen time
yeah,
with them. However, I think that it was very smart to do that because Obi-Wan was like, Anakin, you need to stay back. We need some time, alone from each other, just so we could work more independently and we could work better. But then the
yeah,
lesson is they work better together, and I love that. So it was wholesome
yeah,
moments between them, both going on in their separate ways, growing in different ways. And yeah, Obi-Wan is kind of suspicious of Anakin because of his attachment to Padme. As for our
oh
YouTube
my
audience,
god,
they're right over Ari. So this is very weird. But yeah,
that stuff
lots of cool
that
stuff.
killed me. That
Even
foreshadowing is just,
the
it's scary.
foreshadowing, and even Obi-Wan with
Yeah,
Satine, which I don't know if we'll get into later on
yeah,
deeper depth, but like all that stuff blew me away. And I love again, this book was
yeah,
like Satine is an important character, person in Obi-Wan's life. Gonna include her in there. So
yeah,
yeah, that there's just so much to appreciate of Anakin and Obi-Wan's characters in these books because there's like a lot of aspects that you could cover. You're talking about the dragon heart thing. Oh my gosh, I was eating that up. I was like, "What is that? What is that?" And then when it finally got to the
yeah,
payoff of it, so good. It was so good. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
that, and it was good in a way where I was just like, not traumatizing, but it's just very depressing just thinking about being like, dang, because and Anakin goes out his way to be like, when I trust someone, like I'm gonna keep them around for my life. You know, when someone's an ally to me,
Yeah.
I'll keep them around in my life. When someone betrays me, I'll never forget it. And I was like, dang, that is some scary stuff. But yeah, love Anakin.
Yeah.
This book made me love Anakin like 10 times more than I already do. But yes,
Oh yeah.
yes, love them.
And something as well, Obi-Wan at the end of the book saying, having his suspicions with the whole Padme thing. Obviously, by the end of the Clone Wars, we see in the Bad Batch arc that he pretty much found out.
Yeah,
But
that's what I
him
thought
being
of.
like, should I talk to Anakin about like, this sort of path he seems to be leading down? And then Obi-Wan decides, well, no, I ultimately know that Anakin is a good person, so I won't. It's just like, oh. But it's like, is Obi-Wan right? Because like Anakin is, I mean, is it controversial to say Anakin is a good person? Like, I, I mean, this is a whole other discussion, but I'm like, how do you even know? Because it's like, is he a
Yeah,
good person that just like was heartbroken or what? But I just like, because I'm
yeah.
like, was Obi-Wan right not to talk to him? Of course, he probably should have, but
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
just
think
heartbreaking to read.
I think it was done on purpose here, just because it was like this dangling thing over your head throughout the entire book, being like, we're gonna have that conversation, and Mike Chen brilliantly again would include Satine in there and have his own relationship with her, like
Yeah,
out hanging out like dirty laundry, just being like, yeah, I kind of went through that, and having those moments. Dang, I should talk to Anakin, and then not doing so. It's just like, oh, it's so
yeah,
painful
yeah,
because Anakin could have benefited something like that. And even in Clone Wars season 6 in the Clovis arc, Obi-Wan finally like tells him like, you know about Satine. I've had like some type of relationship with her, but I decided that I need to follow the
yeah,
Jedi path, basically. So it's like,
yeah.
but it's just like you could have started, with those seeds a little bit early on. But yeah, it was frustrating being like, have that conversation, but not getting it.
I know. Well, it almost feels like a lesson. It's like,
Yeah,
think about what could have obviously like the law is set in stone, so Mike Chang
right.
can't change it. But it's like, just think about it's a good lesson that he's writing because it's like if Obi-Wan had have had that conversation with him, made him seem like, look, like I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm just letting you know, like this path, and even just throw out some support to Anakin, be like, if you, I've felt similar things, I've had something go on with someone as well, like just throw him a bone, like give him some support because that was why he was so anxious in Revenge of the Sith. He's like, oh, like the Jedi are going to turn against me because my wife's pregnant, all this stuff. So
Right.
yeah,
And there was even a scene in the Jedi Temple where Obi-Wan was just like creepily watching them embrace each other and everything. It's like, why don't you go? I
yeah.
know it's a little awkward, but it's like, yeah, I think a conversations need to be had, Obi-Wan. But yeah, it's
Speaking
what
of,
mhm.
sorry, you go.
No, I just want to say to cap off of the Anakin Obi-Wan stuff again. There's so many aspects that we could cover it, and it's just like the love factor is another one where it's like, dang. So yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. I was gonna say, speaking of people creepily watching each other,
Oh
Mace
no.
Windu lurking around the chambers when Anakin was talking to all the younglings. Man, I liked what they did with Mace in this story. He didn't play a big role, but it was mainly at the beginning when uh, Anakin straight up says like, "Yeah, geez, Mace Windu really doesn't like me. I don't know why." Like, and then toward the end of the book, Obi-Wan's like, "Yeah, there's always a weird vibe in the room when Anakin and Mace are both there." Like, I
Yep.
just liked that was like acknowledged because I feel like it never has been. So, I like to just see the characters straight up be like, "I wonder what that's about."
Yeah, I thought this book was very self-conscious to the fandom, whether it was the Nemodians or the Mason Anakin stuff. Like I just ate up because I'm like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, we never got confirmation of that.
Yeah. Also, how nice was all the Qui-Gon love in this book? So
Dude.
much Qui-Gon talk. We both watched Phantom Menace together the other day, and I remember saying to you, I was like, dude, Qui-Gon is the best. And you were like, yeah, you got to read Master and Apprentice, which I do. I need to get onto that. But
But did
yeah,
you
no, there
already
was a lot of Qui-Gon love, and
did you notice the Phantom or I'm sorry, the Master and Apprentice callback in the story? Probably not because you haven't read it.
I haven't read it. No,
Yeah, there was there.
what was it though? Tell the
It
listeners.
so it was they talked about Pijal, which was the planet that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon were sent to in Master and Apprentice, and in that book, and in this book, they say that Qui-Gon essentially gave up his seat on the Jedi Council. Was like, nah, I'm gonna decline the offer to continue being Obi-Wan's apprentice. And you can read the book to
Mm,
find out why. But I thought, I was like, Mike Chen not only knows this like Star Wars, but he obviously was incorporating and Master and
yeah.
Apprentice, and not only was he just doing it for like fan service. Literally, Obi-Wan had a moment of realization from a lesson from that book in his earlier years with Qui-Gon, and being like, it all makes comes now. So like came full circle. So I had just read Master and Apprentice like several months ago, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is great. So shout out Master and Apprentice, and I love that it was incorporated in here. And as you said, all the Qui-Gon love, amazing, amazing. So 100.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. By the way, we're having minor internet issues, so the audio, if it's a bit clunky, that's why. Should be fine. But so something else that this is just sort of little details, but I love that R2 was like translated in the book. Like every time,
Yeah.
I think the my favorite one was toward the end when they were trying to, fly back to Coruscant, and then Anakin's like, "Oh, I need to go lay down or whatever. R2, you can fly the ship." And then it's like R2 made a little beep. Obi-Wan responded, "Now I no, I could fly," or whatever it was. But I just love that we actually got through to what R2 was saying. That little droid is quite sassy, fair to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. And I love his Mills interactions with R2, like, oh, I still can't understand the
Yeah.
droid. That was great. That was great.
Yeah. Do you have any critiques of the book? Because I was just gonna throw a few out there. Like, there's just a few little things that I found that made me give the book a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10. Like for example, I didn't love that it took 100 pages to get to Cato Nemoidia. I thought it felt like we were treading water a bit there toward the start. However, there was a lot of like not world building, but just like establishment in those in those first chapters. So I understand, but it did feel like we were treading water a little bit. I also didn't love the super unclear ending on Mill, because it was like she told Yoda she wanted to leave, and then it was a bit, we don't really know what happened, and then in the final chapter it's like, oh, and Mill is going off with Master Nema. I was like, what's guys, is Master Nema now Mill's a master? Is Mill a Padawan? Is Mill leaving the order? Like, I didn't love that sort of ambiguous ending. I
To be
wouldn't have
continued in
minded.
Sisterhood.
I guess. And then also, it felt like the whole book we were like leading up to finding out who had done the bombing, and we just never found out. Like we found out, oh yeah, it was an extremist who was playing both sides, but it was like,
Yeah.
but who? Like I know that's not really what matters, but I just sort of felt like, but we've been reading this whole book to find out who it was. So who was it? So there was a bit there that I didn't love, but besides that, I can't think of much else that I didn't love. Oh, actually, I mean, I don't know if I dislike this, or I'm just not sure about it, but um, I expected like the business on Cato Nemoidia to be something a bit more funny. Like, I don't know what I expected, but it just like the way Obi-Wan says it, like that business on Cato Nemoidia doesn't count. Um, I expected it to be something weird, but now it's like, oh, it was like, did Anakin really save Obi-Wan? Like, or, was Anakin just getting in the way? I was like, oh, right, okay. So now there's almost a debate, like, does the business on Cato Nemoidia count? Like, I don't know. What did you think?
I actually liked it because I don't like when these things are hyped up with the by the fandom, because let's be honest, like this is a 2-second line from Revenge of the Sith that like has just been hyped up by the fandom and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So I wasn't expecting like a big explanation on it. To be honest, I totally forgot they were even going to cover this in this book. And so we're, oh yeah, we're going to Kingdom Nemodia. Let's see what that's about. But like the story was so good that like I just, while I was reading, I forgot that we were going to get to that point. So that was, I wanted to see where these characters ended up, not like how the line was going to be explained or realized. But when it
Yeah.
happened, I don't know. I thought it was funny because the whole lightsaber incident where Obi-Wan was getting it, but it ended up cutting like Anakin's arm, and he comes back like his arm singed, or like his attire, his Jedi robes came back singed, and he's like, "What? I was trying to save you." Like, and he's like, "I had it all under
Yeah.
control." So I was like, it just,
Yeah.
to me, the kind of the funny bantering that they had in this book kind of like feeds into that line in Revenge of the Sith where it's like, yeah, it doesn't count because I had it all under control and you just came in and you just ruined my epic moment with my lightsaber. That's what I took it as. I didn't read too much deep
Yeah.
into it just because the story was that good. Like, again, I said, I forgot that we were even getting to that here. And when I read it, I was like, oh, nice. And it's not like, it didn't feel like, hey, we're going to make a whole book just to cover this, to cover that one line. And that's going to be the pivotal
Yeah.
moment of the book. Like,
No,
it's going
no,
to be a big
for sure.
chapter focusing on that funny thing. Like, it just happened. And I was like, oh, okay. I dug it. I dug it. I don't know. I could be in
Right.
the minority, but I absolutely just enjoyed it and was like, all right, next page.
Yeah.
But
No, that's fair.
criticisms.
I don't know. It's just because like the
Mhm.
whole like advertising for the book was like find out what that business on Cato Nemoidia was. I was like, okay, good.
Oh,
But we got something so much better. It's a real minor gripe. It didn't take away from the story at all. I was just like, oh, I thought it would be a bit funnier than that, but whatever. I like that how it was like it's like does it count? Does it not count? Like there's two sides to it. But
right.
another thing that I actually had written down as a criticism was I didn't like how much time Anakin and Obi-Wan spent away from each other. And I wrote
Right.
that down just around the time where they met up. But then by the end of the book, I was like, actually, no, that worked very well. But did you
Yeah.
have any little gripes with the book or
Um,
yeah.
I do have to say I am still confused. I mean, I just finished it, so I don't know if I missed details or whatever. If I've read the last chapters pretty quickly, but I'm like, who is the culprit in all this? I mean, I love the
Yeah.
notion of extremism, and I love the fact that a Kitar was planning subsequent bombs and trying to do all that,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure who. And not that we needed to know, but it was like you were going for that like mystery thriller vibe. So it's like, well, where's the payoff? You know, when it's like if I sit down and watch a Scream movie, like who's behind the mask? Like, tell us who's behind the mask. I want to know. And we just didn't get to that point in here. I was like, well, Scream just left off into the wilderness. He left. Well, and we got our own stuff to deal with in house. But literally, I think that's the only thing. The first, I think, I I will say, I did enjoy. Well, I did really enjoy the first like 100 pages as you were critiquing. I enjoyed those because they like set up the story a lot, and we got like some down moments between
Yeah.
Anakin and
Yeah.
Obi-Wan and their everyday life, and we got to see Jaro
And Anakin and
DePaul,
Padme.
Anakin and
Yeah.
Padme, Jaro DePaul, Cal Kestis. Shout out to them. Shout out to my
Oh,
Jedi
yeah.
Fallen Order fans. Also, who else? Quinlan
Oh,
Voss.
yeah.
We got Quinlan Voss up in there.
Quinlan Voss.
Quinlan Voss represent.
That
We got
that was a big W.
that was a big W. And Dex, all the Dex stuff
Yeah.
was so good. I felt I
Yeah.
was in there with them eating that cake that
Yeah.
Obi-Wan was eating. I was like, oh, this is just a vibe. But in terms of the gripes, I just don't like how much I'm on the side of I don't like how much time we spent on Kata Nemodia and then just like left in a heartbeat.
Oh,
It's
right.
like, oh, we're off. I was like, wait, we were doing all that with the schematics and the data pad and trying to figure out who's who. And the next
Yeah.
chapter, we're just like they just left into hyperspace. It's like, what happened? So I don't know. We spent a lot of time on there, and I just feel like the transition wasn't that smooth. But other than that, like I literally have no gripes at all. Like I just
Yeah.
genuinely just enjoyed all of this and ate it up like Dex and Obi-Wan with the cake, but yeah.
Yeah, no, shout out to Dex. I was unexpected, and I love how it wasn't just a throwaway cameo. It was like,
Right.
as much as I did love, the Cal and the Jarrett Paul stuff, Dex like actually played a pivotal role in the
Oh
story, which
yeah.
was
Yeah, he
great.
did.
And like we even got a little bit of backstory there with the relationship between Obi-Wan and Dex, which I thought was super cool. We also got to see Cody at the end, which was nice. But I'm surprised we haven't even. I think you mentioned her at the start, but Ventress, we've barely talked about Ventress. What
Yeah, I
did you
was
think
about
of
to
her
say,
throughout the
yeah.
story? Yeah.
Ventress. I did like her. She felt more like 2002's or 2003's Clone Wars Ventress, which is cool.
Yeah.
Um, but she felt
That's
more
what
like,
the image I had in my head.
yeah, that's same here.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. I thought she would have a larger role to play. I mean, I was very invested in Kitar and his idealism. Am I saying that right? Idealism?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Sometimes with my Hispanic accent, words really sound weird to me. But anyways, um, By the way, the other day I was random note in this review. The other day I was talking to a guy about Star Wars in Spanish, and it was the weirdest thing. But anyways, so I get tripped up with my words here. But anyways, the way Kitar was just being like groomed basically by Ventress and being all of like him being turned into already on like on the seesaw, just in the middle of the seesaw, teetering between just like wanting to protect his people, loving his people, and we got to like his tragic story to just going to the total extremist way. And it's like you're gonna kill your people over your ideals, like the people you're trying to protect. Like I thought that was deep, and I thought obviously that couldn't have happened without Ventress. So she was also a pivotal part of the story. But for me, Ventress, I'm like, oh, I kind of wanted something more cool because her lightsaber duel with Anakin, that was cool. But I was like, I kind of got lost in the lightsaber fight just because it was like a bit
Yeah.
overly detailed. I do love my details, but I think it was overly detailed where I'm like, wait, what's going on? But the audiobook helped because we got like the sound effects of the lightsabers. I'm like, okay, they're still
Yeah.
fighting. But yeah, but I thought Ventress was gonna have more of a part to play. Because she genuinely scared me throughout this book. She was just in the shadows, like with her hood on or being next to Obi-Wan in the ship when they were checking out the wreckage site. She was just like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm here, like just so mysterious. And you didn't, I mean, Obi-Wan had his suspicions, like, a Dooku of agent or an agent of Dooku, like what's going on? But and there's a moment where Mill was like, oh no, because Mill, she has like she's able to sense all the like pain that's going on, so like it's overstimulating for her. So there's a moment where she's like, oh no, there's a person approaching us that's angry, furious, lost. And I was like, Ventress, like, she's that's the type of character she is. I'm like, she's coming right through. And it turned to be Kitar, which was a very good scene. But I was like, oh, when are we gonna get Ventress? But we had a cool tunnel scene, but I was still like, I'm still trying to process that though. But yeah, Ventress overall, very threatening in this book, very threatening, very scary. But just not enough for where I was like, oh yeah, I'm satisfied with I'm a big Ventress fan. I'm a big Ventress fan, but I just feel like we could have gone a
Definitely.
bit more screen time with her. But Ari, thoughts on Ventress? Did you even notice she was there or what?
No, I mean, I just agree with everything you said. I thought she was a really cool looming presence. I actually liked the end, like the fight at the end. I thought that was pretty well done. Um, and yeah, I just thought, yeah, that was a good first interaction between her and Anakin and Obi-Wan. And my mind kept drifting off to, is it which Clone Wars episode is it? It's one of the season 1 episodes, I think, where they meet for the first time chronologically in Clone Wars or something. And yeah, it made me think of the Clone Wars movie a lot. So
Oh, on
loved that.
Christopsis?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it? Oh, the hidden enemy. Right, right, right.
yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, no, yeah, I just agree with what you were saying. But you spoke about the grooming of Ventress to Ketar. How about that, but with Palpatine to Anakin? Jesus Christ. It was so much deeper than we ever thought. We thought it was just, oh yeah, he was nice to him in Revenge of the Sith, talks to him in Clone Wars, says he'll watch his career with great interest. Jesus, it was next level in this. And we also got an explanation for how Palpatine knows about the Tuskens. I mean, I'm sure he could have found out himself, but Anakin straight up tells him, he's like,
Right,
You can tell you can tell the Palpatine, you can tell the Chancellor, but you can't tell Obi-Wan." Like,
right. I'm telling you,
Jesus.
this book takes a definitive stance, and it's like this is when it happens. This is because I mean, we find out Revenge of the Sith when Palpatine is like, remember what you told me about your mother and the Sand People?
Yeah,
We get that on the dreadnought that they're on during the Battle of Coruscant sequence. So it's like
yeah,
it's cool that we're getting the moments in a book because I feel like sometimes they're scared to like nail down on what happens just because of continuity sake. Like, oh, we don't want to
yeah,
contradict. So this was another moment that I'm like, yeah, give it to us. And Mike Chen, I don't listen. I don't know if he got it from here or it's just continuation or Lucasfilm Story Group was like, hey, but I think it's Mike Chen because he incorporated a lot in this book. Like this,
yeah,
if I'm gonna describe this book, it's big, fat, and juicy. Just because it's like it. Oh my god! Like I'm satisfied with my meal with it, and also my thirst with it, just because it's that good. Anyways,
yeah,
the first time I described the book like that, but in the Charles Soule Anakin and Obi-Wan comic, we get that Palpatine and Anakin young relationship where they're literally going out to, and it's literally referenced in the book where they're talking about like, oh, like even as a young boy, he was so attentive to me. So it's like they would go out for drinks at the lower levels of Coruscant. They would, I mean, they Palpatine would essentially show him around. So yeah, I thought all that was really good. I'm excited for what's I don't know. I thought like I just want more of all that stuff of Anakin and Obi-Wan. I'm sorry, Palpatine and Anakin. I thought all of that stuff was really good. Where I was like, give me another chapter of them.
Yeah.
That scene ended up paying off at the end because Anakin was like, Obi-Wan was saying like, I think we should keep this like just straight to the public, like give it to them. I don't think it should be filtered by the way of politics and whatnot. And Anakin's like, I trust Palpatine. He's my friend. It's like,
Yeah,
so yeah,
yeah.
that
He's like for sure.
so that scene was very creepy and very, very weird how he was like, oh Anakin, boy, stay after. I want to talk to you. And just kept him after while
Oh
everyone
yeah.
else walked out. I was like, oh no. But like I said,
So weird.
if you want more of that Palpatine and Anakin stuff, definitely check out the Charles Soule comic called Obi-Wan and
Yeah.
Anakin. Like they have moments like that in there. So definitely. Yeah, I thought those scenes were really good.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like I just love how this book just adds so much like substance to all the prequels. Like
Yeah.
when I was rewatching Revenge of the Sith, and there's the scene where Anakin's yelling at Mace, like he must live, like just hits so much harder because of this book, and that's like why I love reading Star Wars books is for adding stuff like that, adding
Right.
layers upon layers to these moments. Um, but yeah, I mean, this book just reminds me so much of that Lux Bonteri episode, Heroes on Both Sides in Clone Wars. Like,
Mm.
it just has all those vibes. It's like yeah, like I mean, as the title of the episode says, there's heroes on both sides. And even though Roog is on the bad side, the separatists, and straight up says like, yeah, I agree with the Trade Federation, even though Count Dooku is not a great guy. I feel like she almost had like moral superiority because um she was just like, with Obi-Wan, she's like, well, you're on the other side of this conflict, but I mean, you seem like a good guy, you seem honest. You're hearing what people have to say, so I'm happy to hear what you have to say. Even though she's going around killing people all the time, I still think she almost had that moral high ground because she was like, well, if you're a Republic or Trade Federation, I couldn't care less, but
Right.
I'll listen to you if you're fair as well. So I don't know.
Yes.
I just liked that.
And I loved how we were able to like it felt like there's been material on this. Like if you read EK Johnston's Padme books, there's a lot of Trade Federation in there and how the politics play out. But with the way this book went, I love the separation between Nemodians, their culture, the people, Trade Federation, and then also the separatists and Trade Federation. I think Minister Yuma. I forgot what the minister's name in this book is, but he asked Obi-Wan, "How would you describe the Nemodian people?" And he was like, "Independent." And it's like that goes for the trade. What a vague term because it goes for the Trade Federation too, right?
Yeah.
They're just business people, and the same minister, dude, the same minister. Best line of the book, or one of the best lines. I don't want to over exaggerate, but one of the best lines was that when this minister guy, what's his name? I gotta give respect where respect is due. But he like told he said the Republic would care about the Trade Federation if we were pumping out spaceships and war machines just like Corellia. And I was like, whoa, that was almost
Yeah.
on par with the Uncle Owen burn in the Obi-Wan trailer. I thought it was that good. I was like, he is
Yeah.
speaking facts. So yeah, I just love getting into all the politics and all that type of stuff with the Nemodians and stuff like that. But literally love going in there and like seeing the differences between all that because when you watch Clone Wars, you're like Nemodian Trade Federation. Oh look, Trade Federation people, and it's like, oh geez, now I feel bad. Sorry to all those guys, and also how Newt Gunray fits into all this. That he's an extremist, that he's
Yeah.
part of the separatists. So yeah, I love getting all those differences.
Yeah. Well, yeah, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to touch on or you want to summarize your thoughts on the book?
Dang, I feel like I feel like we could really go another hour just because it was like so good. Oh yeah,
I'm sure we've missed things. Yeah, like
we've
there's
missed
so much
things.
to talk about with this book. Yeah,
Yeah, and there's so many quotes in here too that I was writing down just because I took
yeah,
I literally, this is how expansive this book is. I took chapter, or I'm sorry, notes for each chapter, and like I have
yeah,
like
yeah,
10, 11, 12 pages just of notes and stuff, and I'm like, wow, this book is so good. So like I said, I feel like I we barely even talked about it just because this book is so juicy. But yeah, I
yeah,
genuinely, this book is for Clone Wars fans, for lovers of the prequels. If you're trying to get ready for Obi-Wan, I think this is a good book just because I think you really
definitely.
get to understand the character of Obi-Wan, and he has those hero moments where he can't just sit around,
Mm,
and he's the one that pitched this idea to Dooku, the council, and Palpatine, of him going there as an emissary and going unarmed basically, and he does, and he's doing it for the good of the
yeah,
people, doing it for the good of the republic, even though he's kind of blindsided by some of the politics still. It's just, yeah, it's very I think almost, it had me in awe just watching Anakin and Obi-Wan fumble a lot, just because they're still barely getting into this realm of transitioning a, into a galaxy of chaos and a galaxy of war. So if you're a Clone Wars fan, really, I gotta suggest this book 100%. But yeah, I would probably rate
definitely.
it like an 8.5 out of 10. Yeah, or maybe 9 out of 10 even. I'd probably
Yeah,
give it a 9 out. This book is so good. I love it. So yeah,
yeah,
Ari,
yeah.
closing thoughts, and I think you already revealed your rating, but
Yeah, I already
yeah.
said 9 out of 10. I sport that. I didn't even realize. But yeah, no, 9 out of 10. The last thing I want to touch on is just this final quote, Mill to Anakin. I forgot to read it out earlier. I read a part of it, but
Uh-oh.
this is Mill's final passage to Anakin. He says, well, what she's thinking at least. So he goes, he could choose differently if someone just gave him permission. A passion so furious that the intensity of his feelings might be the very thing to incinerate himself into his worst nightmare. Man, that foreshadowing, crazy. And then she, of course, says to him, "You don't always have to be the Sun Dragon." But yeah, no, Brotherhood is just overall fantastic. I just hit my mic by accident. If you are, as Mike said, if you're a Clone Wars fan, if you're looking for something to do for before Obi-Wan, if you're a prequel fan, check this book out. No, stuff that. If you're a Star Wars fan, read this book. It's just
Read it.
fantastic, honestly.
Read it.
But
Um
yeah,
there's yeah, it's really good.
were you gonna say something?
I kind of want to read a quote here about that
Go
just
for it.
kind of sums up a lot. By the way, Obi-Wan's speech real quick, that was so good.
Oh yeah,
I
we didn't even talk about that. That was
We didn't even,
amazing.
and
That whole
Duchess
chapter was
Satine,
just great.
it
Yeah.
was great. And do you think Duchess Satine, but do you think she heard the message and copied him, or just like, do you think
I
so?
would love to see a story in the future where we see Satine hearing that speech.
Yeah,
I
that
would
would be
love that.
cool. It kind of
Yeah.
reminded me of Ezra Bridger's transmission and how like all these people heard
Oh,
it.
true. I didn't even think about
Yeah.
that.
So I'm just gonna read this quote here. Comes from
Yeah.
page 230 in the book. And I think this comes from, is it from Obi-Wan? Uh oh, I think it is, but yes it is. All right, ready? There is only one solution for all of us on all sides: de escalation. And there's only one path to
Yeah.
de escalation. The Trade Federation cannot stay neutral in this war. Neutrality in the face of extremism is only gives the extremists more space to breathe. It must be extinguished before more lives are lost, and the only way to stop it is to de escalate the war. My name is Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jedi Master and Emissary of the Republic, and I presented the facts to you in good faith. Bro, when I read
Perfect.
that, I was like, I mean, at first I was like, okay, cool. I was like, okay, then try the thing. I'm like, so many people could take this to heart now, just being like staying neutral and like politics and stuff like that. And how he said
Yeah.
more, it gives extremists more space to breathe. I was like, okay, cool. But the way it ties up at the end of the book with Palpatine, because of what happened on Cato Nemodia, accelerating the war effort. Obi-Wan is just like sitting
Yeah.
there stroking his beard in the Senate chamber, being like, what is going, like, what
No.
was my
Yeah.
speech for? So it just took me back to this moment and be
Yeah.
like, wait, I gotta read this after I finish the book. How to jump back into this and be like, this is so good. So yeah, like I said, if you're trying to get ready for Obi-Wan, read this book, but read it regardless because it's that good. But anyways,
Yeah,
that's my closing quote.
for sure. And yeah, I just like to just summarize everything. I just love how this book sort of begs the question: are you playing politics, or are you doing what you truly think is right? And then also, what is more important, playing politics or doing what you truly think is right? And that's sort of like the moral battle that Obi-Wan and Anakin sort of seem to have. So fantastic writing, Mike Chen. Give him another Star Wars book ASAP in the prequel era with characters that he wants to write about. Would love to see it. But yeah, I think that just about wraps us up.
Yes, it does. And listen, you listen to another book review from the Star Wars Exchange. We get books early, so if you're trying to, stay in the loop on Star Wars books, make sure to subscribe. The next book that we're going to be reading is it's that new Luke Skywalker book that's with Lando. I forgot
Shadows
what.
of the Sith.
Shadows of the Sith, that comes out like in June or something. So stay tuned because we're going to be
June
talking about it.
28th.
June 28th comes out June 28th. So we'll be talking about it.
Yep.
But before that, we're going to be talking about Star Wars Celebration because Ari and I will be at Star Wars Celebration fairly soon. It's going to be unreal. Our first live show together. It's going to be unreal. So you guys need to subscribe and watch these friends meet up because I'm sure we're going to have fun and stuff, and we'll be uploading to all that. So also, we're going to be posting videos and pictures. We just hit 150 followers on our Instagram page at the SW Exchange.
Hell yeah.
We're always showing there. We're always posting exclusive content of me and Ari, or just what we're doing and any updates on the show. If there's going to be a double episode this week, or if there's not going to be an episode this week, but that hasn't happened yet. So, but stay tuned.
There's always episodes.
There's always episodes. But yeah, we're going to be covering our celebration journey on there. So make sure you follow, and also here, subscribe if you're on Apple Podcast, Spotify. Subscribe, rate, review. We appreciate you guys, our audio listeners. You're the best because, well, I love our YouTube audience, but you guys, I made that intro, that fire intro that you hear at the start of every episode. So I'm glad you guys get to listen to my producing skills. So appreciate you guys. Yeah. And Ari, I'm sure you're going to be reading Brotherhood again, but when you're taking breaks and you're on Instagram, where can people find you? Oh yeah, and on Twitter.
Find me on Instagram at Star Wars_exchange, on Twitter at the SW Exchange. How about you? Where can people find you, Mike?
Yeah, you guys can find me all_Star Wars on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Instagram, so yeah, check me out there. Like I said, gonna be covering Star Wars Celebration, so I'm excited to do all that and cover more books. So till next time, may the Force be with you. Adios.